and I now resume my function as President of the Council. I now give the floor to the Permanent Observer of the Observer State of Palestine.
Madam President, allow me at the outset to express our appreciation to you for convening this urgent briefing upon the request of Denmark, Greece, France, Latvia, United Kingdom, supported by Bahrain, China, Russia, and Pakistan, to address the critical situation and ongoing escalation by Israeli occupation forces and settlers in the West Bank. Allow me also to thank the two briefers, Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Ramiz Al-Akbarov, and Deputy Executive Director of UNICEF, Ms. Hanan Sulaiman, for their comprehensive reports. And let me also add, I listened very closely to the very clear, principled, powerful statements from all of you with regard to the violations committed by the Israeli occupying forces and the settlers against the Palestinian people, especially children, and we appreciate this very strong sentiment. And as many of you have indicated, what is needed is action. You are the Security Council. You have responsibilities to act and to enforce international law, and your will and resolutions, and not a single party to continue disrespecting all of us, not listening to any one of us, to be held accountable and to be brought to the position that the Charter of the United Nations expect as an obligation from each member of this esteemed organization, the United Nations. We cannot continue to meet, to condemn, to explain, to give details, and yet business as usual. Somebody takes note, ignores all of us, does not respect its obligation as a member of this organization, and we do not act. We can act, we should act. We are formed as a Security Council to make sure that the international peace and security of the world is maintained, and if any one party, a state, does not meet its obligation in this regard, to be held accountable, and you have tools available to you to act. Madam President, Israel's objective remains the same: seizing maximum Palestinian land with minimum Palestinians. All its policies can be traced back to this singular objective pursued through military assault, settlers' violence, home demolitions, discriminatory laws, and annexation measures. The tools and the excuses may vary, but the pattern is always the same: uprooting Palestinians from their land or denying them the right to build on it, to grab it. To the Palestinian state recognized by nearly 160 states. We exist as a state. Look, I sit behind the plaque that says State of Palestine. We have 160 countries that recognize the State of Palestine, including the great majority of the members of this Security Council. The reality is that one state is illegally occupying the land of the other state. So therefore, we need the international community, the Security Council, to help the State of Palestine that lives under ruthless occupation, illegal occupation, using the words of the International Court of Justice, to help us to end this illegal occupation, as the International Court of Justice said, as rapidly as possible. Of course, we appreciate all efforts to make this occupation less vicious, if there is such thing as that, in the process and in the way and the path of ending this illegal occupation. That is the main objective, ending this illegal occupation, not to make it a nicer occupation. And many of you have exercised that during the time of putting an end to colonial occupation and control in the past. So I don't need to explain to you what you were struggling for in order to attain your freedom and liberation. We are the last kid around the block. We need to end this evil system imposed on us, oppressing us, stealing our resources, killing our children, doing all the evil things that the UN reports describe, all of the agencies of the United Nations describe, and other NGOs, organizations describe as well. So it needs to end. And all people who respect and honor international law and their obligations as members of the United Nations and the principles enshrined in the Charter of the UN is to help us to put an end to this tragedy. We, the Palestinian people, are doing our role. We are staying in our land. We lost thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands killed and injured during the last 3 years alone. And we are doing our job in order to attain freedom and independence of our state. We need the help of those who believe in the same principles that we are committed to. And we appreciate the fact that some of you took some measures. But there is more that needs to be done, because this ruthless occupation, illegal occupation, is refusing to abide by everything that you describe, by all the reports that describe, by the articulation of the International Court of Justice. Then what should we do? Just keep urging them, keep appealing them, or resort to measures and use tools available to us? Some of you are doing it in their national capacity. We appreciate that. But there is more that needs to be done so that this illegal occupation cannot feel that will make all of us come to the conclusion that we are wrong and this illegal occupation is right. The Palestinian people are telling you, by paying heavy price, we will never surrender. We fight for our legitimate rights, including our right to self-determination, the independence of our state, and the right of the refugees. We are doing that, and we are not reinventing the wheel. All of you who faced a similar situation, you struggled for your rights. But also all of you received support from the international community, and we expect support from you. It has, to the Palestinian state recognized by nearly 160 states around the world, Israel opposes the settler state, armed and unhinged, with its full support and complicity. It has created an enabling environment for violence by its soldiers and its settlers, guaranteed to them effective impunity, unleashed them against Palestinian communities, refugee camps, and villages to torment and terrorize the Palestinian population. Many of you gave details about these things. For years now, we have called for international protection. Many of you referred to that need. international protection in accordance with the resolutions of this very Council, for deterrence, for real accountability, for practical measures to counter these policies on the ground, not only condemn them in international fora. And while countries are taking measures, as I said, they are no match to the Israeli grave breaches, nor are they dissuasive in nature. Only when it is too late will the world again realize that the cost of inaction far exceeds the burden of resolute action. In the West Bank, this attack against the Palestinian people includes an attack against the Palestinian Authority, whose role is essential in preserving Palestinian presence in the land. Through the theft of our financial resources, which many of you refer to the attack against our institutions, which many of you refer to, Israel is seeking the collapse of the PA in the hope that this would precipitate the transfer of Palestinians outside of Palestine, displacement. Madam President, throughout the occupied Palestinian territory, annexation is underway. It's not an idea. It's underway. Brutally and relentlessly. Palestinians have now been confined to 30% of the Gaza Strip, 40% of the West Bank, and 13% of East Jerusalem. This is by design, through decades of policies aimed at emptying the land of its people, displacing and replacing them. These last few years saw a dramatic acceleration of these policies that have yet to be met with an appropriate response able to put an end to them. There is some action. We need more and more and more until this illegal occupation to yield to the international law and the position of the Security Council and its resolutions. In Gaza, Israel's response to the agreement reached over disarmament and full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza was not to welcome it, but to reject it and to continue its bombardments against the Palestinian population. The Comprehensive Peace Plan and the New York Declaration rely on key principles: no occupation, no annexation, and no displacement. This is what the two plans have in common. This Israeli government is fully committed to pursuing all three at all cost and by any means. We all say no annexation, no occupation, no displacement. They are not only saying, they're working day and night by all means, yes to annexation, yes to occupation, and yes to displacement. The plan builds towards reunification of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, as many of you have indicated, under the Palestinian Authority, Palestinian self-determination, and independent statehood. The Israeli government is fully committed at preventing them at all costs and by any means, and they don't hide it. They announce it every day. While Palestine and the Arab and Muslim countries are doing their utmost, and a number of these examples and statements that were released recently were referred to, are doing their utmost to ensure the implementation of the plan, Israel keeps undermining it, whether for electoral purposes or territorial objectives. This constant undermining of international efforts has to stop. Lives are at stake, and they cannot be subject to electoral calculations or radical ideologies. The future of the region is at stake, and it cannot be left to be decided by colonial appetite or hegemonic aspirations. We have a common vision and a common plan, and cannot allow any spoiler to derail them. They must be implemented. All of us are saying we want to implement the 20-point plan of President Trump, reflected in resolution of the Security Council 2803 and the New York Declaration. All of it, the plan, the 20 points, not a la carte menu. You select from it what you like and you discard the rest. No, from point 1 to point 20 and the New York Declaration. The international will cannot bow before the colonial whims of the Israeli government. Madam President, elections are to take place in Israel and Palestine in the coming weeks. The world should send an unequivocal signal that it has charted a path for Palestinian freedom, self-determination, and independent statehood that leads to two states, Palestine and Israel, living side by side in peace and security, and to a region of sovereign states that together can foster a future of shared peace, security, and prosperity. The other path leads to a very different outcome, one this region has visited time and time again, one of occupation, wars, loss, and bloodshed. How much more bloodshed from our children and our women and the vulnerable and all the Palestinians we need to put at the altar for this illegal, vicious occupation to leave us alone and to allow the international community to prevail and succeed in supporting the Palestinian people in their quest for freedom, dignity, and independence. Show our people that there is a peaceful path that leads to freedom, dignity, and security. I appeal to you, the Security Council, show our people that there is a peaceful path that leads to freedom, dignity, and security. And demonstrate to the Israeli people that this path of colonizing Palestinian land and controlling and destroying Palestinian lives is not the path that leads to security, peace, and acceptance. It is time for our region to unleash its true potential, one that can only be achieved through a free Palestine, respect for the rights and safety of all peoples, and the sovereignty of all states. Thank you very much, Madam President.
I thank the permanent observer of the Observer State of Palestine for the statement, and I now give the floor to the